Well, we're a few hours away from October, which automatically makes me think about what will be the October surprise, as I'm just surprised every time Kamala Harris says something.
Stacey Johnson.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
We used to go to the clubs and her Father Seville.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable, and yet so piercing. As anyway, in this particular video, I specifically wanted to talk about what could potentially be the larger October surprise between now and November 5th. Will it have anything to do with our infrastructure and energy grid going down? As of course, there's some surprising news regarding that today. Will there be some larger hacks and sabotage attacks on America and its larger infrastructure that is dependent on more and more data that could be potentially compromised? Could there be a larger port strike and lack of availability of natural resources and products due to supply chain disruptions? Or will there be something related to migrants or a larger conflict in the Middle East? Or, let's not forget Europe as well. What's going to be happening here? Well, that's the larger deep dive that I wanted to look at and kind of assess what could probably happen here, as of course, the larger kind of political circus that we are all involved in is absolutely ludicrous, and in the year 2024, there are no coincidences. It's been a crazy, wild year, and it's fair to say that the season finale of this political crazy season will end with a bang. What will happen? Well, we'll be getting into that in just a little bit, as of course now everyone is talking about Donald Trump's latest comments, which some people are saying is witty and hilarious, while other people are freaking out about it.
Insult her intelligence.
Well, I have to do that. Well, I don't think she's a very bright person. I do feel that. I mean, I think that's right. I think I am a very bright person, and a lot of people say that. I don't think she's a very bright person. And you know what? Our country needs a very smart person, and I don't think she's a very smart person. So I'm not looking to, I don't consider that an insult. That's just a fact.
But how do you really feel, Donnie? As of course, he didn't hold anything back, as today, even top Democrats are disavowing Donald Trump as neoconservative chicken hawk saboteur scoundrels like Lindsey Graham, according to my own personal opinion, came out and is now pushing back against Donald Trump as he said that, quote, Kamala Harris was, quote, mentally disabled. As Lindsey Graham said that this was a, quote, dark speech, clarifying, saying, quote, I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. Quote, I'm not saying she's crazy, her policies are crazy. As Donald Trump's full comments were that, quote, Kamala is mentally impaired. If a Republican did what she did, that Republican would be impeached and removed from office, and rightfully so, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Trump added, quote, Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Now, very strong, heated, I would say comedic words that are meant to, of course, ruffle some feathers, as Donald Trump is known for being a comedian and also kind of speaking off the cuff. He doesn't put on fake accents. He doesn't pretend to be somebody he's not. And I think this is the kind of lore around him that has been able to galvanize so much support for him. As of course, he's not faking accents, talking to people from different demographics. He's saying exactly what he feels like, and he's kind of like an insult comic. As there's a big portion of the American population that absolutely loves it and is eating it up. All of this as Kamala Harris has just staged her latest photo op, highlighting a blank piece of paper and headphones that aren't plugged in, as she is describing her particular situation, responding to the absolutely horrible situation happening in Middle America right now, as across 5 states, particularly North Carolina and Tennessee, many people are still without power. There's reports of thousands of people missing, as the media is not really paying a lot of attention to America after it was hit with a major hurricane. This as the U.S. government just announced more military aid and financing to, not to the Americans affected by this hurricane, but to foreign countries in the military-industrial complex that will, of course, be using it to bomb and destroy and maim other human life. That, of course, your tax dollars are probably also going to paying to rebuild. This, as you would think, some of these power outages, some of these issues after the hurricane that just ripped through America would be addressed. as the only thing we got is this like little photo op here that a lot of Americans aren't buying. All of this, as it's also going to be interesting to see the role of Kamala Harris that probably will try to step up as some kind of very powerful leader in between now and November 5th. As, of course, I think it's fair to say Joe Biden's days are numbered, and he's becoming more of an inconvenience to the DNC. So in the month of October, there might be some kind of larger situation where Kamala Harris takes the reins of power, as there's a possibility of Joe Biden to potentially have some kind of medical emergency, for him to potentially even have mental health issues, for him to say enough is enough, for him to officially step down, and then Kamala, of course, would come in and deal with a very pressing situation where she will be seen as some kind of big leader. There is a possibility, especially in the theater of politics, that something like that could happen in order to help kind of booster the polls and the favorability of Kamala that a lot of people are realizing isn't as favorable. Now, no matter how many celebrities you throw at her, no matter how many canned interviews you give her, no matter how much positive press she gets from the corporate media, no matter how many people get extorted or paid to shill for her, looking at you right now, Dave Bautista, there is a larger possibility that Biden will get Clintoned. As of course, there's more to this, as during the Clinton Global Initiative happening right now in New York City, Hillary Clinton did come out and she did state that it was the right decision for Joe Biden to, quote, stand aside during this critical election, as Hillary Clinton has also announced that she will play any public and private role in the next administration, as a lot of people point to her and many other top Democrats for ousting Joe Biden undemocratically from the primaries that never happened, as he was conveniently replaced for the political party machine right after a very interesting debate performance which happened very early on in the political cycle, something that was also very suspicious here as well, as Hillary Clinton is now cheerleading this very undemocratic move, as she's also in the press warning of a, quote, October surprise that will distort and pervert Harris. Now, what is she talking about? What is she trying to set the stage for? As she is saying that she anticipates that there will be a full court press in October and that the digital airwaves will be filled. As she's talking about an October surprise that will go against Kamala Harris, as it's important to note that she had her own October surprise in 2016 during the WikiLeaks DNC Hillary Clinton release that really did play a major role in the 2016 election. As Hillary Clinton here during this specific speech was mentioning the possibility of fake news or disinformation out there that could, of course, sway and affect this year's election. Now, why is she setting up this kind of groundwork for something potentially that could happen that could censor speech? As she complained and moaned about the media and people's ability to be able to speak to each other, which is usually the biggest enemy against despots and dictators. As Hillary Clinton even went on and talked about the possibility of the Iranians, the Chinese, and of course the Ruskies getting involved here. As here's a portion of her comments that were, I think, some of the biggest eye-opening statements in this full speech.
Press needs a consistent narrative. I mean, the press that's not supporting Trump blatantly, very persistently, the press that's trying to be the press, be objective, be, reporting the facts. The press needs a consistent narrative about the danger that Trump poses. Because
what? That's what the corporate media already is doing. Now, what did she mean by media? Is she just talking about the mainstream journalists that overwhelmingly are aiding and supporting Kamala Harris here? As of course, there's been entire studies here detailing how ABC, CBS, and NBC News were all attacking Trump even after there was an attempted taking on his life. As studies are highlighting how 95% of all the press, of all the reporting after the attempted taking of Donald Trump's life were overwhelmingly 95% negative. And it's not just me saying that. There's also official Harvard studies that talk about how the media has been largely negative on Donald Trump, as Hillary Clinton is saying, no, we need more negativity. We need to understand he's a, quote, danger, as Alex Jones says that Hillary is so arrogant that she's publicly giving the corporate media their marching orders. As it's fair to say, the press already has a consistent narrative. They aren't objective. They aren't fair. They aren't balanced. Many times they lie through their teeth. Many times they obfuscate the truth. Many times they try to make you understand that the things that you're seeing in front of your own eyes and the things that you're listening through your own ears are not true. As we saw, especially during the ABC presidential debate, the larger bias, the larger fact-checking, the larger kind of aggressive maneuvers made by institutionalized state media organizations that parade themselves as independent organizations, that these people clearly have an invested interest here, clearly are taking marching orders from somebody else and are advancing their cause rather than actually kind of dealing with it. So why is Hillary Clinton talking about this now publicly to everybody? That's a question that, of course, might set the groundwork for what could potentially be what she's warning about. And that is the larger kind of false flag October surprise event that all of us are waiting for this larger political cycle. As John Kerry also came out and is laying the groundwork to make the case against the First Amendment, which clearly has freedom of the press in there, that to him is a major roadblock. As John Kerry at a World Economic Forum event also had this to say about the First Amendment right now, which he sees as an obstacle towards the government being able to do whatever they want to you. And that's exactly what it should be there for. That's exactly what this country stands for. That's why exactly this country is correlated with economic progress that is directly linked to personal freedoms and liberties. As the more you take the personal liberties and freedoms away from individuals, the less free, the less prosperous your country becomes. And it's fair to say that a lot of these people don't care about its prosperity. They care about themselves. They care about their own invested interest. And something is afoot here as clearly two very big, prominent establishment globalists are all coming out and speaking along the same terms of how bad it is to have speech, to have people be able to talk to each other, communicate with each other, and find out exactly what's happening in this world. That right there, bad, awful, horrible. To them, when in reality, it's the only thing standing in the way from a total totalitarian, technocratic takeover of our entire society, plunging us into indebtitude and slavery. Yeah, sorry, buddy, but I like my freedoms. I like my speech. I like being able to discern information with critical thinking. I love being able to do that. And that is the main chief rival, chief enemy of all these people that are essentially, in my opinion, trying to subjugate and squash your personal liberties and freedoms away from you.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact have kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go and that people self-select.
Good. Those referees told us that there was weapons of mass destruction. Those referees told us the banksters needed a bailout in 2008. Those referees lied through their teeth for the benefit of the ruling class forever. And now John Kerry, I think, also said the quiet part out loud that they're being eviscerated. Good. They deserved it because they were not neutral referees. They were paid off shills for the corporate establishment that people finally are seeing who they really are. And this is why the corporate media is losing a lot of legitimacy. This is why independent media like us is becoming more and more prominent as we're also getting under attack. As I got attacked very significantly last week, very devastatingly. I can't even talk about what happened, but it's absolutely awful. I'm still dealing with it. I'm still talking to lawyers and accountants, and it's just a pain in the butt. Which reminds me, before we go into the possible false flags, the possible kind of larger events and John Kerry's speech, what are you doing watching the show without signing up to lukeunfiltered.com? Sign up right now. You could sign up for whatever you could afford, and it does mean a lot to us, and you get a lot of really cool, awesome things, including 3 masterclasses, a forum, a members store, seed oil cards, a crap list items of the supermarket, and videos at least every other day just for members of lukeunfiltered.com. So if you haven't signed up and gotten the exclusive videos, we have, I think, 11 plus years of videos only for members, specifically centered around you becoming the best, strongest, most amazing version of yourself. We also have all the master classes that you could take that has homework, that has at least 50 plus videos per each masterclass that you get to learn, that you get skills, that you increase the ability of your life to be made better by your own personal decisions that are now well-informed decisions. As, of course, we took out a lot of the guessing work, and whether you're interested in survival, whether you're interested in traveling, whether you're interested in podcasting or doing YouTube videos, this is the place to go. And you get all of that just for simply signing up as a member of lukeunfiltered.com. So if you haven't done that, your support, by the way, needed more than ever. Directly under attack. Not fun. Not easy to go through what I'm going through right now. It might totally wipe us out, especially if we don't have enough support. So sign up right now, lukeunfiltered.com. Click the link down in the description, and I will see you there right after this broadcast with a special broadcast just for members of lukeunfiltered.com. As, of course, let's get back to this video. And let's play some of the other clips from John Kerry that were absolutely revealing, to say the least.
Where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And you know, there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, you know, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, you know, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, you know, hammer it out of existence.
Now, well, what kind of consensus is he talking about? He's talking about acquiescence. He's talking about obedience. He's talking about people who don't know any better and will comply with the wishes of what the globalists and central controllers want to put on you. Now, who defines what is disinformation, what is true, and what is not? Well, it should be up to the individual with critical thinking and discernment, which clearly John Kerry thinks you don't have any of. And that's this kind of patronizing elitist viewpoint on society that really does need to be highlighted here, as, of course, this is a sick, bastardized, elitist perspective that needs to be called out immediately. Being like, hey, mofo, you think you know what's better for me? You think you know more than what my eyes see and what my ears hear. You think you know what I should be able to listen to and not listen to? Are you kidding me? Who are you? Are you my God? Are you my emperor? And that's how he wants to be essentially seen. He wants to be a God. He wants to be an emperor. As, of course, the one thing that made this country as incredible and as great as it is, the First Amendment, is something that he is trampling on right now because he just doesn't like it. Because he can't rule like he previously ruled beforehand with an iron fist, being able to do and lie without being called out for it.
So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, you know, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Yep, and that last point is actually true. This election will be deciding whether we have the First Amendment and free speech or whether it will be trampled and absolutely destroyed and obliterated by, of course, Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party establishment that, of course, sees it as something standing in their way from consensus compliance and obedience to the state. Now, Donald Trump, again, isn't perfect on this particular kind of issue, but let's be honest here, he's a lot better off than Kamala Harris, and he definitely does represent more of an ability to actually respect the First Amendment, respect free speech, since he not only utilizes it to the fullest extent himself, but more importantly, all the enemies of free speech are his enemies as well, which signals his larger stance here that he is put in automatically, whether he likes it or not, as kind of a larger free speech advocate, which I think is the larger kind of thing that we're looking at here, because without free speech, you don't have free markets, you don't have freedom, you don't have democracies. As very duplicitous, he says we need to secure democracy by destroying civil liberties and civil rights. And that's something that I just don't agree with. And it's fair to say that this election is far bigger than just Kamala Harris versus, of course, Donald Trump. As today, in the making of this video, we got breaking news that millions of people on Verizon are unable to make calls due to a, quote, sudden outage, as many people on the Verizon networks are getting SOS connections at this very moment. Errors, their text messages aren't going through. What's happening here? As one user says, another, quote, October surprise. Well, it's fair to say we don't know what's happening here with this particular issue, as this could be some kind of larger test. This could be some larger kind of accident. This could be someone not updating their software on their computer or updating it in a wrong way as well. Now, cyber attacks are real and something that, of course, we should also kind of pay attention to, as a lot of our infrastructure, a lot of our everyday lives is dependent on technology. Now, what happens when you disrupt that technology? That could either happen through, of course, even a solar flare, even a natural event, or a hacking event, or a false flag hacking attack, as we saw with the World Economic Forum, with their cyber polygon war games that they previously did with Russia, simulating larger infrastructure hacking attacks on, of course, Western civilization. Now, could this be in the play here? Could there be a larger event that turns off all communication right before the election, and then the election happens, and then we have instituted a new leader without anyone being able to fact check, talk to each other, or, of course, communicate with each other? Could be. As, of course, the establishment is desperate, and when the establishment is desperate, they're capable of some absolutely crazy moves. It's fair to say that, in my opinion, they're kind of like a cornered animal. They don't like to lose. Powerful people don't like to relinquish power. What will they do in order not to relinquish it? I think there's a possibility of some kind of hacking, some kind of infrastructure attack that could prevent people being able to talk to each other, that could stop social media, that could stop people's ability to, of course, not rely on the corporate media for information. And with all information potentially now being in the hands of the corporate media, the approved media of Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, who really don't like people talking to each other, we have to understand that there could be major moves made during that particular time, that there could be no one standing in their way against, since, of course, they control of all information. I think that's a likely scenario here that I am completely speculating on and, of course, guesstimating, because I do not have a magic fortune crystal ball that tells me the future. I'm just laying out the potential scenarios of what could be happening here. As a lot of people deal with technical difficulties, Steven Crowder today also talked about how he was not able to do a show today because of some larger tech issues that he doesn't know what's kind of really going on. And again, tech problems happen all the time, but I think if there's a major tech-wide issue that happens, there should be some people kind of questioning what's happening here with the potential of a larger kind of hacking incident that could be blamed on a foreign country that could spark off a larger conflict with them as well. As communications go down, the corporate media says automatically it was the Koreans, the Iranians, the Russians, which we need to fight immediately since they just launched a larger attack on us. Now, there was also U.S. government agencies that came out just even a few days ago, specifically talking about how the Russians have been mapping our larger communication hubs and internet cables in the oceans, which they could conveniently just disconnect, just like Western powers did their Nord Stream pipeline in a retaliatory response that would, of course, create a lot of chaos. Now imagine, the internet goes down, you're only stuck with the boob tube, you're only stuck with newspapers now? The Koreans are involved, the Iranians, the Russians, we got to attack them now? They're the reasons you can't get on your Tinder and Bundle? That's it. Let's go, boys. As the rallying calls will be kind of clear here, and something to also potentially look at, as we are also involved in larger escalatory situations, as the United States has just equipped Western long-range advanced missile systems in Ukraine, which I believe the Ukrainians will be utilizing this month of October. And when they do this, this will be a larger escalations that a lot of people will be looking at to see how Russia will respond to, as Russia has declared this as a specific red line, and essentially officially meaning that NATO and the United States will be at war with Russia. Now, how does this kind of change the landscape here? Well, it does it very dramatically, as this is a larger possibility of what could unfold here, as there could be a larger escalatory attempt here to escalate the situation with Russia. And then when that happens and there's a larger war with Russia against the West here, we need to implement emergency laws and procedures that, of course, will block out communication, stop the spread of disinformation, as we are in a war. And during war times, we need emergency powers in order to deal with that war. As if you look at previous historical events, especially now with conceptualizing advanced military abilities and technology that is at play here, many, many decades ago, there was entire economies and societies that have been stopped because of conflicts where the government comes in and says, no, we need all the metal. No. We need all your labor. We need all of your resources. We need you to now be there for our larger war effort. Could that happen, specifically potentially with Russia? Well, with the latest advanced tech here, yeah, I think that's also a larger probability. As in the Middle East, there's also the larger possibility of Israel doing a ground invasion of southern Lebanon that could start immediately, according to a lot of experts on the ground there and government and military sources. Now, what will happen if there's a larger war in the Middle East that could potentially involve Iran as well? Well, that same scenario could unfold in a very kind of likely scenario and situation that I just previously described. With that, there will be, of course, larger issues about natural resources, as there's also news today about a port strike that is allegedly happening now that could be the October surprise that Newsweek is reporting on that, quote, Kamala Harris dreaded, as there's a video now circulating that I have not been able to independently verify, allegedly showing port workers declaring that the strike starts now, with the Teamsters union as well as other kind of unions joining in as well.
If you're a Teamster, punch out, grab your stuff, go home. Let's get out of here. We are officially on strike. Let's go. Punch out, let's go. We are officially on strike.
Now, what will be the response to this particular potential port strike? Well, significant, as a lot of our supplies, a lot of our infrastructure specifically runs through, of course, transportation and trade that could be absolutely disrupted. And then when that does happen, it means that there's going to be an unusual upheaval to our normal everyday lives. Now, could this be the major issue? Will it be settled? Will there be some kind of negotiations with the unions that stop this? There's also a probability that all of this could happen, or there could be some kind of larger deliberate efforts that could spur on more chaos that the establishment will use for their own personal benefit. Now, what's going to be happening with this strike? Who knows? We will all see as, of course, the situation will be developing. Now, what do I think personally will happen here? Well, I think there's a big possibility for Joe Biden to step down, Kamala Harris to come into a more prominent position of power. I do see the possibility now of the Ukrainians very soon using these long-range advanced missile systems with the direct support and assistance of the United States and NATO governments. How will Russia respond? Well, I think they potentially won't, as, of course, Russia also has a big bark. I do see a ground invasion happening inside of southern Lebanon, a limited military operation. Will the Iranians get involved here? No. They also have a big bark, and as many geopolitical foreign policy experts highlight, not a lot of bite. Now, the Russians, I think, are more of a kind of potential bite kind of scenario here, if you're going along with the analogy that I'm trying to describe here, since, of course, they started the war in Ukraine that many Western leaders said that they wouldn't. Well, they did. How will they respond to long-range missile systems being used against them? I don't know. I think we're living in such crazy, chaotic times that anything and everything could happen, especially this year. That's the big learning lesson that a lot of people are getting from all of this. And with everything unfolding the way it is, it wouldn't surprise me if all the scenarios I laid out would exactly happen, exactly like I said that they would. All of it happening at one particular moment or spread apart. Since I think these are the larger possibilities. What do you think is the larger possibility? Let me know down in the comment section below. Sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com. Do it now. Seriously, I need your help. It's just $8 a month. It's like 20 cents a day. Seriously, 20 cents a day. We need your help. We need your support more than ever. Sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com. I got more content, more videos coming your way, all exclusively here on YouTube.com/WeAreChange. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys doing that, and that's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more.